William here with Saturday Fright Theater for Around the World in 80 Screens. And we're here tonight with Dave Shelton. And Dave has got a great story. And Dave, thanks for joining us here on the show tonight.
It's my pleasure.
And you have a show of your own that you're kind of launching and getting ready to go here. And it's Professor Creepy's it's Scare Scream Party, correct?
Yeah, Professor Creepy Scream Party.
So tell us a little bit about Professor Creepy's Scream Party and where you got your inspirations from the show.
Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I'm looking forward to being part of Around the World in 80 Screams and being on Roku. I've had a long career in the industry, working on everything from comedy to horror. I was writing for Everybody Loves Raymond. I was with Nickelodeon, and I was with National Lampoon, and horror had always been a big influence. I've been friends with a lot of major horror stars, and I've always loved, ever since I was little growing up in New Jersey, a show called The Hilarious House of Frightenstein. It's from Canada, but they did rerun broadcasts in New York, and it starred Vincent Price, and it was this really goofy show that Billy Van, who is this kind of all-around comedic actor, was amazing. He could do impressions. He was a regular on the Sonny and Cher show, believe it or not. So when I discovered that he played all these characters, and it was like all the Universal characters, like Frankenstein's monster and Dracula and Igor, and I thought, oh my gosh, that show stayed with me my whole life. And then I discovered shows like The Banana Split and Elvira and Zachary and every weird horror show you could think of that introduced horror movies, but they were kind of goofy.
Right.
So when I was thinking of something to do with all my horror friends, which included like Sid Haig and Martin Kleba and Vernon Wells and Michael Berryman and Irwin Keyes, I said, you know what, I'm just going to put together this amazing show of just goofy kind of sketch comedy set in a circus freak museum, because coincidentally enough, I had become friends with a guy named Carl Crew, who runs this thing here in California and in Los Angeles called the California Institute of Abnormal Arts. And it's a circus freak museum in North Hollywood. And I was part of their documentary about the place, and it got really popular. So they said, this is the perfect place to shoot this.
Right.
So I just started sitting down and writing sketches and putting this together. And then Leanne Curtis from 16 Candles and Critters 2 is a good friend of mine, and her daughter, Jacqueline, was on American Idol. And I thought, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great if I had like this kid walk into the Circus Freak Museum, and her imaginary friend, which I came up with, was Professor Creepy, and that just kind of was a hit inspiration, ran a late night party, like a kind of a TV party, where, you know, there was everything from music to sketches and puppets that came to life and dolls that came to life, and they were the dancers. And I mixed that all together. And that's kind of where it all came from. And we have the slug line which I thought was so inspiring. I don't know where I came up with that, but yeah. Professor Creepy at the beginning of the show goes, "Hi, welcome to Professor Creepy's Scream Party, where we rise from the grave and party all night because the rates are cheaper." And he says that at the beginning of every episode, and it's really funny. So it's kind of a weird story how the special was made, which was kind of a combination standalone special and a pilot. Uh-huh. We were originally going to be financed by a guy from Breaking Bad, the TV show.
Yeah.
And I won't mention names, but I will, RJ Mitty. But we were in New Jersey visiting relatives, my girlfriend, who wound up being co-executive producer, and I. And the day after Christmas, we were supposed to start shooting January 3rd. And the day after Christmas, we're traveling, visiting relatives. when I get a call saying that all our budget was being used to bail out he's adopted, and his adoptive mother was using the money to bail somebody out in Texas,
Oh
where
my.
she's originally from, and we lost all our budget. So
Uh,
I already had pay or play deals. I didn't want to back out of this. So, my girlfriend at the time, Tammy, and we just pooled our own money together and produced it ourselves.
oh
And you know
wow.
what? I'm so much happier about that because we own the show ourselves.
Right, right, which is important. I
Plus,
mean,
it would have been a nightmare. Talk about nightmare shows. It would have been a nightmare to have this person, the mother,
right.
involved in the show. It was a blessing in disguise.
Well, it's sometimes they work out things like that for the best, and I'm glad that it got made. So, um,
Yes, and so what I did is I called all my actors, and I had accumulated all my horror friends to do this. So
uh
like Erwin Keys came on board, and I wrote parts for all of my horror friends.
okay. And that's, I guess, what I was going to bring up next is like, where did you, find all the casts? I mean, were these people that you knew, or did you have to, go out and find them? And where did you find your cast?
Sewers, insane asylums, the street corner,
Well, yeah.
perfect places for those kind of characters. No, I was friends with Erwin Keys. He was one of my best friends. He's
Yeah.
from, House of a Thousand Corpses,
Right.
Tolerable Cruelty, Frankenstein General Hospital. And, we had talked about working together on a cool little horror show. So he was one of the first that I got on board. And then
Okay.
Jennifer Lyons, she was a really good friend too. And then I said, I just wrote the parts specifically for them. I didn't want to go out and cast. And then Martin Kleba, who's a good friend, he was from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
You know, you kind of remind me of him because he's also bald, but he's a little different.
Right.
He's the one that was on Jack Sparrow ship, and he was in
Oh,
Mirror Mirror and things.
right.
Amazing
Right.
little actor and stuff. So I originally had him as Professor Creepy,
Uh huh.
but the day we were supposed to shoot, he was stuck in a snowstorm in Michigan, where he
Oh,
was from.
yeah.
So the night before, I put out a call to the other little people of America
Uh huh.
and other little, because Debbie Lee Carrington, who was the bride of Chucky, and she was in Total Recall, she was supposed to be in it too, but
Uh
she
huh.
couldn't make it.
Oh,
So we put out a call, and then Kevin Thompson, who was
right.
one of the Ewoks, and he's a stunt actor also.
Yeah.
Um, he came in at the last minute and filled in for Marty for the
Uh huh.
special and did an amazing job. He had to learn all the lines in like a couple of hours.
Oh, wow.
And,
Wow.
and I think the night before he was on a shoot that was working late, so he didn't even finish his other shoot till after midnight, and then the call time for us was like 8:30.
Oh,
So the poor guy didn't get any sleep, but he did such an amazing job and pulled it off. So he came in, and then when we go to series, Marty will take over to
okay.
be Professor Creepy again. But Kevin, I'm going to create another character for him and bring him in.
Oh, cool.
Um, so the pilot wasn't like a huge budget, so I couldn't call in everybody I wanted,
Right.
but we called in enough of them, and then um, we had Leanne Curtis Charles Kyoto from the Kyoto Brothers. He's part of it, and they're going to be doing some props and puppets for us for the series. We're going to have so those are the main people that we used for the pilot special, and
Mm-hmm.
pulled it off great. There was a band, because we also have music. There was a band that I was friends with called the Love Me Nots, and they're from Arizona. And they had this sort of alter ego band called Zero Zero, and we thought, why don't we bring them in? And they were so accommodating. Just for our shoot, they drove all the way from Phoenix
Oh,
just for the day to do our show, and it
wow.
was really, really cool of them. So they wound up in there, and then we wound up using some of the video of the Love Me Nots as part of it. And everything just kind of came together. And there was this like really cool synchronicity to it, and it became such a cool thing. My friend Ben Hammer, who did music for Doctor Who, we had him come in and do the theme song for
Oh,
the
wow.
entrance,
Yeah.
and that turned out amazing. I do not want to use another theme song.
Right.
Uh, but then I started putting the word out because once we did the show, we started winning awards like
Yeah.
all over the place. And people were going, this show has to sell. This is something like we've never done before. It's
Right.
never been out there. And, because of my love of horror, I'm now attracted so many people who want to come in. Like Michael Berryman is now going to be a regular. Sid
Oh, wow.
Haig's going to come on. Vernon.
Yeah.
It's someone named Pat Jankowitz who writes for Fangoria, but he's
Wow.
also an actor, and he's got acromegaly too. He's coming on. A vampire type character named Raven Tremblay, he's coming on. So we're bringing in a lot of cool people. Plus, and we're going to hopefully have a good budget for it.
Yeah.
Cheap Trick,
Hmm.
they're really good. Robin Zander is a really good friend of mine from Cheap Trick, and we
Yeah.
work together on some other stuff. We're going to have Cheap Trick come in and perform.
Oh,
The
wow.
Ghastly Ones, the Sonics. I'm trying to get Rob Zombie to guest and
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson, and so all these major horror people.
Yeah.
And it's just something that's so much fun. The horror community has embraced it, but also the kid community. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I wanted to make sure we included is I wrote the theme song for Special Olympics, and I've been dealing with kids with Down syndrome for a long time.
Uh,
I want to make sure that we use some disabled people in the show,
yeah.
and we actually have them as dancers, which I think is so cool.
Oh,
And
wow.
we have them dress up like in costume. It's like a Halloween party for them.
Right, exactly. I mean, that's important, and that you don't see a lot of people doing anything like that, and I think that's amazing. It gives something, inspirational. I think to all of to everyone. Right.
I want them as just part of it, like they're actors.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's absolutely amazing. I think that the fact that you've done this on your own and it's really truly grown independently from yourself. I think the passion really shines through, and I think that's why everyone's attracted to this project. Because I know, like I said, once I heard about it, I was immediately drawn to it. It's absolutely amazing.
And I've already got, oh, this is so cool. I have a
Yeah,
licensing agent now who's working on getting merchandising deals for Professor Creepy.
that's cool. That
And
is.
I also have a lot of children's books that are out. I have one that's called Bag Boy and Sweet Slob
Uh huh.
that just finished, and we're going to try to get, it's kind of like as if Tim Burton Light drew it, and so it's really weird, but it's kind of cool. So
Yeah.
I want to incorporate that. I created. I don't know when you watched it. Did you see the iCrusties commercial
Yes.
on there? Well, one thing that I really like doing is because I've had a lot of products in the stores over the years. I was a toy designer with Imperial Toys. When I was at National Lampoon, I was in charge of merchandising to get out as well as writing for the magazine and writing for the comedy. That I always look at things ancillarily. Like, okay, it's got to be stuff that you can make product for because that's where you make most of the money. But you look at stuff like Garbage Pail Kids and all of the kind of the weird Wonka candy. I said,
Right.
why don't we just put out some weird stuff but make it healthy, and the kids don't care as long as it tastes good. They
Right.
don't need to know that it's nutritious.
Exactly.
So I created, and I used to love like the most disgusting things growing up,
Uh
like
huh.
that. I would eat mud pies when I was a kid,
Oh,
and
geez. Yeah.
I top it with whipped cream. And sometimes I would play prank, and I would give it to friends, going, "Oh my gosh, I just got this chocolate cake pie," and I think it was, and I get them to eat it. It was so cool. Bart Simpson would have loved that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, so I said, let's come up with some really weird, disgusting names. But I came up with the recipes, and my ex-girlfriend who helped me with the show, she's a nutritionist, so
Uh,
she helped me with the recipes.
oh, wow.
And so that's where iCrusties came from,
That's
and
cool.
Snot Logs, we've got that, and the earwaxies, um, pustules. I mean, I've got like all these really cool products that are going to be coming
Right.
out. So we shot some spec commercials, and the commercials have been taking off. People are going like, "Where's the product?" And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's not out. Yeah, we're tying it in with the show. So
Right.
when I signed with the licensing agent, he loved that aspect of it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we get the show in the full season production.
Yeah.
We're going to actually start releasing the merchandise and stuff on it
Oh,
too.
that is so cool. I mean, that's that's just kind of goes hand in hand. That's amazing.
You
And
have to.
yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that's just like I said, it's just there again. It shines the passion that you have is shining through, and I think you're well on your way there. And well, I tell you what, Dave. Where can more people find out about Professor Creepy Screen Party? What do we got? Websites and social media. What's out there right now that they can find you and get behind this?
Well, they can go to my regular page, which is snuggiebear.com, SNUGGYBAAR.com. And
Okay.
there they'll see all about Professor Creepy. There's links to the special. We were on, because we just cut a deal with Retro TV.
Yeah.
They're owned by Lucan Communications, which owns the Action Channel, oh, the Family Channel, a bunch of different networks. And
Right.
they
Right.
love the special, and so they gave us a deal. They're going to air the show, and they're
Yeah.
on cable. The fact that it's going to be like intended to be catering to our generation, I
Yeah.
think besides the kids, it's also going to be really great for people in our generation. So they cut us a deal to air the show, and there's a show on there called Horror Hotel
Yeah.
with a girl named Lamia. She's on the weekends.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's
Part of around the world.
besides being one of the hottest, little horror hosts out there, she's smart. She knows
Yeah.
what she's doing.
Yes.
So she featured Professor Creepy on one of her shows
Yeah.
over the summer, which was really cool. And she has 10 million viewers.
Oh, yeah. It's absolutely
So
insane.
we got some really great publicity. So the link to that is up there on the page, which is under snuggybear.com. Along with some of the other stuff. They can also go to Professor Creepy's Facebook page,
Okay.
which is, facebook.com/Professor Creepy Scream Party, and they can see a bunch of stuff up there. Hopefully they'll go to Around the World in 80 Screams and see it there.
Exactly. That's going to be the big one right there.
And
Well,
then
for us,
the special was airing on Erie late night TV for a while, and then they got picked up by the Monster Channel,
right.
and
Right.
and so they picked up the pilot for that, and they've been running that on their network,
Great.
and they say it's the most requested show on their network, which is really, really cool. And it's just amazing. It's like, and then I've had options for it
Yeah.
over the last few months, and people have said they've been wanting to put money into it so that they can produce the season and then sponsor it. We've been going after sponsors.
Oh, wow.
Have you heard of Atmosphere
Yeah.
FX?
Atmosphere. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they do all the really cool horror videos for Halloween and stuff. They're signed on as one of our sponsors,
Oh, wow.
our product sponsors, once the show goes into production. And we had a company that does wheelchairs. They're like the biggest manufacturer of wheelchairs.
Yeah.
And because of our special needs in kind of inclusion, they were going to finance it, but then their budget was kind of cut, and that kind of killed that. So we're talking to some other investors. We're still open, and
Okay.
anybody that wants to invest in this, they'll become sponsors, and they'll get a big percentage of the merchandising deal.
Yeah.
So we're putting that out there. There's one who's potentially involved, and I'm going to know more about that in the next week because they've expressed interest for
Uh-huh.
their fourth quarter to be included,
Uh-huh.
and we're just waiting on that.
Yeah.
But it's like people say there's like the engine that could,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're the show that could. We're the little show that could. And with all the fans that we've built up in this, and the fact that everybody wants to guest star on the show,
Right.
but we still need a budget to pay them.
Yep.
It was really nice. All my friends did this show for practically nothing, like below scale,
Oh, wow.
because they love the idea and they love the fact that we're using special needs, but they also love the fact that it's fun.
Yeah.
it's like, the way In Living Color just kind of took off and launched so many people from that show.
Really
But
did.
set in a horror theme, and you have like this I love little people. I write a lot for little people. I have
Yeah.
this spoof of Blazing Saddles that I'm doing with a little person. Um, it's called
Oh,
Little Guns because he rides a little horse and he's a sheriff with little guns because his hands are so little. I love. The weirder, the better for me.
right.
That's all I can say.
Well, I tell you what, Dave. I before we let you go here, how about yourself? I mean, obviously you look seen. Yeah, it looks like you're all in on the Professor Creepy Screen Party. Is there anything else you're working on right now that you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I have lots of things, because of my brain.
Right. Well, it's the same
I
way.
never turn off. I just finished recording a 32 song music demo,
Uh huh.
all original material. I laid down all the guitar parts because I've been playing a long time. And ESP Guitars sponsored me, and I played it all on my Bela Lugosi guitar, which is so cool. It's one of the best guitars I've ever had. And I'm looking, and it's all ASCAP and copyrighted. I'm looking now to get the songs out, not for me as a
Right.
singer,
Uh
but as a songwriter.
huh. Okay.
So if any of your audience, bands or anything is looking for songs, I've
Oh
got everything from anarchy to heavy metal to goth to ballad.
oh
This is
wow.
so funny. I wrote a song that was kind of for Gordon Lightfoot,
Uh
who
huh.
was a very famous Canadian singer. And he
Right.
had lots of hits like Edmund Fitzgerald and stuff. You know what's sad is like kids don't know who he is, but
I,
he's won Grammys and his stuff is legendary.
yeah.
So I wanted to write a ballad that kind of fit his mode.
Uh huh.
And this Tony too, my ex-girlfriend was telling me like, oh, no one's gonna listen to songs written like for Gordon Lightfoot. And yet when he came to perform here in LA, what did she do? She bought tickets so we can go see him because she liked him. I'm going like, there
Right.
you go.
Right there. I mean, come on.
And you know what? He at the audience, yes, there were a lot of like the what I call the living dead because they're close to death, but they're still living.
Right.
Like the Abe Simpson set and
Yep.
stuff. But there were younger people there digging on his music. It was like
That's
so cool to see that. So I just did that, and I have all different styles of music, also classic rock style. I'm in a documentary about classic rock called "What Is Classic Rock," and that's on Amazon. That was cool. It was with like Bruce Kulick's in it, and Country Joe and the Fish, and Bachman Turner Overdrive, all the Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses. So
yeah.
that was really cool, and that's out. I've got this new children's book coming out, Bag Boy and Sweet Slob.
Uh huh.
Let's see, what else do I have out there? Oh, my book, Brain Explosion, the one I was saying about all my National Lampoon stuff, it's
Right.
become a bestseller. It's now at Barnes and Noble, so they
Wow.
can see it
Okay.
there, order it online, or they can go to Amazon and buy it there.
Okay.
Please buy it. I need the residual
Exactly. Exactly.
royalties. Um, let's see what else. I'm working. Oh, I'm working with Cynthia Rothrock, the legendary martial arts star,
Yes.
on a TV show called A Case of Homicide. So we're working that around. And then Jeff Speakman, I wrote a film for him. He's also a martial arts star. Was in The
Yeah.
Perfect
Yep.
Weapon.
Right. Perfect weapon. Right.
Yeah. So I had written a martial arts film for him. So we're working on that. A couple of other horror film stuff that I'm working on. Professor Creepy
Yeah.
because the momentum that we have, it's just incredible.
Yeah.
But in Hollywood, I got to say, and I'm very upfront and open about things.
Uh huh.
I'm not filtered,
Right.
so I'm from Jersey. We don't care.
Right.
Um, you know, so many people make promises here in LA.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in even in the horror world could vouch for that of how many projects they have that are great, and then they just sit and do nothing. They option it. Trancas Films, are you familiar with them?
Uh, can't say that I am. No.
Trancas Film, Malik Akkad, his father was Mustafa Akkad from all the Halloween movies.
I was just about to say, yeah, from Halloween, right?
Malik took over the franchise.
Okay.
Well, he optioned one of my shows, and we went out and we got like the guys from Pee Wee Herman involved,
Okay.
and a really big line producer, and the Kyoto brothers were going to come on and do all of our costumes and everything. And the Kyotos are the ones that did Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Space, right.
And Charlie, they're some of my best friends. Well, he paid all this money for an option, Malik did. And then after we got all these parts together, sat on the project for the whole option term, and then did nothing with it. And that's kind of like what I've been up against.
Right.
As great as the projects are, it's like just cycling through things, and it's really frustrating.
Right.
I even wrote one film that I wrote that we're going to be hopefully doing soon is called Who Killed Hollywood.
Oh, okay.
And it's like Death Wish, which is one of my favorite franchises.
Yes.
With a kid, it's kind of like with a kid.
Okay.
And it's the older brother of a child actor who was killed by a Hollywood cult pedophilia ring.
Uh-huh.
And there's like all the rumors, but it's true because I know Corey Feldman really well, and where they were saying there was all that sexual abuse of kids in Hollywood.
Right.
And Bryan Singer, from the director Bryan Singer was involved. Well, this is my take on it, and he seeks revenge. This is so cool. The older brother seeks revenge by going after everyone in the ring and killing them the same way their characters do in some of their movies.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So it's art imitating life,
right.
but it's in a movie. It's not real life. So.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. And I call it Who Killed Hollywood.
That's
and
awesome.
A kid named Zachary Rice, who is, he's the iCrusty's kid.
Oh, okay.
He's now 6'3", and he's only 14.
Wow.
He's signed on to play the older brother.
Okay. Wow.
And he's a kickboxer now. This kid deadlifts at 14 over 300 pounds.
What? That's crazy.
I have a problem lifting a donut, and he's lifting that.
I like standing up out of my chair every once in a while. Does that count? I don't know, but
it almost counts.
It almost counts. But well, Dave, I won't keep you much longer. Like I said, I do appreciate you coming on the show.
I hate talking. You can probably tell.
I know, me too. It's why we do what we do, right? I mean, but. Last thing I'll just say, since we are talking a little bit about Around the World in 80 Screams, I do have to ask you, this one, I think of all the people that I've had a chance to ask this, I think you've got probably the broadest spectrum of lists to pull from. So of all the people that you've worked from, with all of the people that you know, what would you say is your top horror icon? Where do you draw your most inspirations? When you have that dark and stormy night, what's your favorite go-to?
Well, in LA, we don't have many dark and stormy nights.
That's true.
But I've had a lot of inspirations in my other work, like cartoon-wise. Charles Schulz was one of my biggest inspirations.
Yeah.
But in the horror world, it has to be literally Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, I studied his life. I read everything by him. It's kind of sad that he didn't become famous until after he died, and he wound up becoming an alcoholic, but his stuff was, to me, just so inspirational. And for the fact that with all the crap that he had to deal with back in the 1800s in the literary world,
right?
It's kind of like what's happening in Hollywood now. He was older. He was dealing with younger people going with like the trends, and it's kind of like that now. So him, Vincent Price.
Yes, there you go.
I would have loved to have worked with him. I got to meet him in school when I was in college.
Oh, wow.
And he came to our school. I went to the University of Florida, and he came there to do a seminar, which was so cool. And, of course, I was in the front row.
Oh,
let's see what else in the horror world. Probably all the old Universal writers, and like Bram Stoker. Yeah. That was a big inspiration. Boris Karloff. Yeah. It's just funny because I met his daughter, Sarah Karloff, at a convention when we were both signing, and I was telling her about some of the animation stuff I was doing, and because I worked with June Foray,
Okay.
who was the voice of Rocky the Squirrel. And
Uh-huh.
she was a good friend. I was telling Sarah about it. She said that Boris had, because I also used to write music with Albert Haig, who wrote How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and Boris
Right.
did the voice for it.
Yeah.
So Sarah had all these recordings of Boris
Uh-huh.
that she said she had the rights to him, then she said Universal had them, but she's trying to get them back.
Right.
She wants them animated in like children's stories.
Oh, that would
And
be
I
so
said, well,
cool.
I can get that done once you get the rights back. And she's still fighting for the rights for it. Universal will not really, and they're her father's voice recordings. It's ridiculous how, she's fighting and she can't get that back. But that's kind of typical. I used to co-own the rights to the Bowery Boys. I
Okay.
don't know if you've heard of them. East
Uh-huh.
Side Kids, Den
See,
End Kids,
right.
Hunts Hall, things like that, with Leo Dorsey Jr.
Yeah.
Well, we had deals for merchandise with all these companies, but the descendants of all of the other characters would not release the rights to us.
Oh
So
my.
that's why you never see any merchandise the way you see like I Love Lucy lunchboxes and stuff. You
Right.
never see Bowery Boys merchandise,
No, you don't.
and
Right.
that's really sad. So, but he was a big influence. Um, all of the old horror films and the writers and Universal, of course, everything
Yeah.
that came out of them. George Romero,
Yes.
he was a big influence. Anything that's alternative writing.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Arthur Conan. Eh, um, Arthur Conan Doyle was a
Yeah.
big influence. Those kind of thing. Anything weird, and also as far as directors, John Carpenter, like
Okay.
a talk show, and it was very very cool. So those are some of the. I have other influences, but those are some of the major ones that have influenced me.
Well, that's absolutely amazing. A lot of them are the same, and I think it's kind of neat to just hear your inspirations because again, you have so many stories, and I honestly I'd like to have you on again if you're ever willing, there, Dave, because
Oh
like I
my
said,
God,
I could
that'd be
probably do
great.
the
I
whole
was
stuff.
I was just talking with my manager. She says, with all the years you've been doing this and all the weird stories you've had, you need someone to do your biography.
Yeah, yeah,
And I go, you know what? If I could find an author that wants to sit down and start recording it, because they say you should write it yourself. You're a writer, but I don't really want to write it about myself. I'd rather have someone else do it.
yeah. I know what you mean. That's
Because it's always easier from someone else's perspective. Because if I sit down and start writing it myself, I'll get mad and I'll be like, "No, I can't. Let someone else do it. I have too many horror stories. Like, let them do it."
Yeah. So, well, I tell you what, Dave, I won't keep it any longer. I do appreciate you joining us here tonight on Saturday Fright Theater for Around the World in 80 Screams. And we're going to make sure that we get the word out there about Professor Creepy's Scream Party. And in fact, like I said, I'm friends with people over at Horror Hotel, so we'll make sure we get this and get this showing on their show and get it shown on
Oh
Roku.
my God, you know Lamia
Oh, yeah.
Michelle.
I'm actually correspondence for her show. I did.
Oh my,
So
isn't she the coolest?
she is the best, and I'm not saying that because she might be watching this, but no, she
No,
really is.
she just is what she's done by herself,
Yeah,
like to get that show and the Horror Hotel convention,
yeah,
and you know, and the fact that she also does her like her karate thing, and her self defense things, and everything else that she does. I just think she's just such an amazing woman.
she is
But
absolutely
Lamia, Michelle, if you are listening to this or you watching, come to California. She never comes to California.
no. It's too sunny
We
for
got to
her.
get her on Professor Creepy, then she'll have to come to California.
That is very true. I think we'll give that a shot. So,
And
but
I'm really excited for Around the World in 80 Screams. I've been telling everybody about it, and I'm honored that you guys want the show on there, and I
yes.
appreciate the airings. And like, how many networks is it going to be on Roku?
Right now we're at 28 now and counting. So,
Wow, that
so
is so cool.
yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be something, and we're only gonna be growing. So But I do appreciate it. So, Dave, we'll let you go. And, folks, we're going to get you back to the movie right here on Saturday Fright Theater, where every night is a frightful night when you're watching a movie.
Keep Professor Creepy partying.
See you back soon.